The first technique I'm going to talk about is something called a Makura kotoba, which translates into English as pillow word. These are fixed 5-syllable expressions which are used to modify a range of specific nouns and thus add to their meaning. These were most productive, in the sense of new ones being invented, in the old Japanese period, so the 7th and 8th centuries, but they continue to be used with a greater or lesser degree of comprehension in some cases, right the way through Waka's history. Indeed, some of them are still used today by modern poets when composing tanka, and they wish to create a high culture literary effect. It's probably easiest to demonstrate how Makura kotoba were used by showing you an example. So, there is a Makura kotoba, hisakata no, which is used to modify nouns such as ame ama heaven, sora sky, and things connected with them, such as tsuki moon, hi sun, hiru daytime, ame rain, yuki snow, kasumi haze, hoshi star, hikari light, and yo night. It's also used for a few non-celestial related nouns such as katsura, katsura tree, miyako capital, and kagami mirror. But what does it mean? The simple answer is that nobody knows for sure, because the manual poets who used it all knew and so didn't need to write down an explanation. This means that there are various theories, such as that it derives from hisasukata, the direction from which the sun shines, while the characters used to write it suggest the internal and or far-reaching nature of the heavens. And that's how I translate it when I encounter it in a poem. The fact that from about the 10th century poets didn't know what this word actually meant didn't matter. It was still used extremely frequently. In fact, a quick search of Shinpen Kokka Taikan, the new edition of the complete collection of national poetry, this is the standard reference source for Waka poetry, I have a copy of it in my office here, shows it being used 1,856 times in all of the poems in that collection. Let's look at a couple of examples. Waga sono ni ume no hana chiru hisakata no ame yori yuki no nagare kuru kamo. Within my garden scatters the plum blossom, from the eternal heavens snow comes floating. This poem is from a very famous sequence of poems composed by Tabito and his guests at a banquet he held on the 13th day of the first month, Tempio II, 2nd of February 730, when he was governor of Dazai, which is the pre-modern name for Kyushu. I gave you the head note to this sequence of poems in the presentation on critical terms. The string of characters at the top of the slide is how the poem was originally written. At that time, kana had not yet been invented. Underneath, you can see this converted to current Japanese script. As you can see, he has used the Makura kotoba for the central line of his poem to modify and precede the word ame, heaven, which begins the 4th line. Here's another example. Hisakata no ama no kagu yama, kono yube kasumi tanabiku, haru tatsu rashi mo. Upon eternal, heavenly fragrant Mount Kagu, this evening the haze trails across and spring seems to have arrived indeed. Amano Kaguyama, Mount Amano Kagu, is a mountain in Asuka to the south of Nara, which was sacred in pre-modern times, although you can now hike up it. Here's a picture of it, surrounded by urban development, as so many poetic locations are these days. Amano Kagu translates literally as heaven's fragrance, which I've used more or less in my version. The anonymous poet who wrote this poem was obviously conscious of this meaning, however, because he or she has prefaced the place name with Hisakata no to lead into it. In fact, I came across an almost identical type of usage of a different Makura kotoba by chance a couple of weeks ago. Mifuyu tsugi haru shiki nureba aoyagi no kazuragi yama ni kasumi tanabiku. After deep winter's passing, spring has come. Across willow green Kazuragi mountain, the haze does trail. In this case, the Makura kotoba is aoyagi no, like a green willow tree, which is used to modify kazura, which is the name of another plant. It's a type of vine, so the reason why aoyagi no is used as a Makura kotoba for it should be clear, I think. In any case, Kazura is also a part of the place name Kazuragi, and so Sanetomo has prefaced this reference with the Makura kotoba for literary effect. Incidentally, I'm translating Sanetomo's collection, Kinkai Wakashu, the Kamakura Minister's collection, and putting out one poem a day on my Threads account, so follow me on that if you want to hear more from him. Sanetomo is a tragic figure, the third Kamakura shogun who lived much of his life in terror of being assassinated and turned to poetry as an escape, producing over 700 waka between the ages of 17 and 22, before, sadly, lapsing into alcoholism and depression and being assassinated by his own nephew when he was only 26. In any case, getting back to our two Hisekata no poems, they were written in the early to mid-8th century. 350 years later, we get composed on the conception of longing for intervening clouds. Tochi ni wa yudachi surashi, Hisekata no, ama no kaguyama kumo ga kure yuku. Upon the estate of Tochi, showers fall, I'd say. Eternal heaven's Mount Kagu vanishes behind the clouds. As you can see, Toshiyori has used exactly the same pattern in his poem as was used in the earlier one, although he has placed this in the centre of his poem rather than at the beginning. I hope this serves to demonstrate just how conservative the waka tradition was, with accepted expressions being used and reused numerous times in different periods. It's more than just an illustration of conservatism, though. It's a demonstration of the way in which waka poets used these types of conventionalized expressions, which had been utilized countless times before, to connect their work into what might be termed a great web of intertextuality. They consciously echoed the work of earlier poets and linked their own compositions to it as a way of demonstrating that they were part of the same tradition, that they fitted into and were a worthy part of it. By using a Makura kotoba in a poem, then, a poet subconsciously invoked in his or her audience's imaginations all of those other poems which had used it before. This demonstrates how an individual waka is rarely just that. It's part of and draws upon the grand tapestry of other poems. This type of intertextual linking was to become a hallmark of waka poetry, as we shall see shortly. Here is the last poem in Shinpen Kokkataikan to use Hisekata no. Hisekata no ama no hashidate, honobo no to, matsuo no koshite, kasumu nami kana. Eternal ama no hashidate grows faint. The pines remaining clear above the hazy waves. As you can see from the slide here, this poem was written by Inoue Fumio, who was a 19th century scholar, poet and doctor. Inoue's usage, though, is no different from that of Toshiyori 800 years before, or that of the Manyo poets.